My name is John Paul Horstmann.
He's kind of a Renaissance man, right? He's a musician, he's a director, he's an editor, he's a writer. He was like a guy out of the 70s.
Cool jeans, long hair, cool coat.
His style is rock star style.
He has always had a little je ne sais quoi.
And he'll be like, woo, and just like hit this like sick solo. And you're like, why weren't you a professional guitar player?
This wasn't a college kid, this was like a movie director.
He was doing big stuff straight out of college.
James Franco, Brad Pitt, Billie Eilish.
Billie Eilish, and you act like it's nothing. That's not another day in Hollywood.
Everything you would want your cool LA rock star film producer friend to be.
More than any rock star look, he's just a good person.
He loves to help people.
I wouldn't be where I am today if it were not for him.
It's extremely appropriate that John Paul gets the first Pitt Stars Award.
John Paul is someone who never forgets where he came from.
He was humble and he always gave back.
A Pitt Star is a person who shines in a way that allows others to succeed.
I chose Pitt because I wanted to be an astronomer. I had no idea that I was going to work in film at all. Like I had absolutely no interest and just kind of stumbled into that.
Pitt's film program back then wasn't very focused on film production.
I was really surprised that there wasn't a television station. Ryan Harvey was my roommate.
We used to have very misadventures and things we can't talk about, but
I don't know, we just wanted to get a rise out of people and be silly. I was like, we should make a TV station. There was just like this decision that was like, I'm just going to make one. What happened was I spent 2 years setting up the station before we even got on the air.
When John Paul told me that he was the guy that was going to bring college television to Pitt, I became sort of the right hand to John Paul in his effort.
Sam Kotler was like my partner in crime.
I supported him in all the efforts that were being made to obtain the equipment. It's not easy to make those wheels turn, right?
It's the people who struggle that have to like understand what hard work is.
I guess I can take everyone through a time machine. Woo, woo. There was no YouTube. The internet was still in its infancy.
You know, there wasn't just like a simple upload and a couple clicks and write a description and it's there. He also had to spearhead the funding for it.
He was raising the money, he was starting this thing.
It was like, let's make a little presentation, let's put a little video together, let's have a PowerPoint.
We were kind of like the little engine that could, that no one believed in us.
So we literally started out in basically a janitor's closet.
John Paul had to go through a lot of hoops just to get us that.
It was a 7-foot by 11-foot room in the cathedral.
There was a whole core group of people that kind of joined in the first year.
I saw a sign, do you want to make TV, come to this meeting? John was there too, and I met him that same day.
A mutual friend of mine was like, hey, there's this guy and he's building a TV station. You should go meet him. I went to him and was like, hey man, I'm a filmmaker. I want to do a show for you. And then the tape I handed him was this show called Lothar von What? And he like put it in his pocket and that was it. This dude blew me off. Next day, John Paul calls me, he goes, you're the only person who dropped something off to me. And I watched it and you're really good and I want you to work on this team. I'm sorry about the whole thing. And now it's like, great. And that started our friendship.
And those people, it was kind of like this magical like Beatles meeting Beatles moment almost. Like it was just like the right group.
At the beginning, it was called the Creation Station, which if it sounds a little bit like Christian radio, yeah, I'd agree.
At that time, I called it the Creation Station because to me, I was trying to find an outlet for students to be creative and make their own projects.
You could do whatever you wanted.
We had a bunch of comedy shows.
I wrote and directed the sitcom that we called The Pits.
And the sports guys would come in with Jamoke Davis and all these guys.
I went to him and said, hey, I would like to start a sports channel. I felt like, okay, this guy understands what I want to do, which is like, oh yeah, cool, okay.
That was the most fun part about it, is I was kind of like a TV executive or something. Just like, you make the show, and then they would do it, or not do it usually, but we tried.
I think for the students, like they had never seen someone on TV before. You were either a celebrity on TV, like a famous person, and the next step was like what we were doing.
The first Coachella, that's what we were. The first South by Southwest, where now everybody's doing it. We were there at the beginning.
To be like a 19-year-old dude on a college campus and have girls know who you are is like the dream come true.
It wasn't because John Paul wanted to be the big man on campus. It was because he had this vision of people collaborating, of this student-run platform for content.
He was so welcoming, very much like someone who wanted a community of people that he could work with and grow UPTV.
Everybody taught everybody else. It was really a communal thing.
John Paul would sit there with me in the cathedral until 2, 3 in the morning, teaching me to edit.
We would kind of be side by side till 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, both editing.
That's a rare person, and that's a person that inspires you to then want to do that for others.
He is one of the greatest teachers of filmmaking that I've ever met.
By teaching each other and figuring out ourselves, we were becoming problem solvers. And by becoming problem solvers, that's the tool set that you need to make it in the film industry.
He was like our first guy that we knew that really worked in the industry. John Paul easily could have lived in Pittsburgh. He probably could have, found a way to be getting paid to run UPTV or another local college. John Paul was a risk taker and he was a dreamer. So he was like, I'm gonna move to LA and take this internship. That was the thing that made it feel like we could do the same.
When we had already started the station and we were making our little videos, we didn't really know where all that was going. Like, we didn't come to Pitt to become film students. When I graduated, my basic goal was maybe I'll teach or have some kind of role at Pitt. Carl Kurlander was the teacher that really gave us a way to bridge from Pitt to the film industry. Carl helped me get out here to Hollywood because he's the one that recommended me for the American Cinema Editors internship.
I knew from working in Hollywood that the American Cinema Editors Association was the premier organization, and this was a real thing, and that this was a really great opportunity.
They give out 2 a year, 2 internships a year in the entire country. I was like, geez, I don't know how I'm gonna, get in. It's all these big film schools and stuff. And he said, well, I'll write you a letter. So
I wrote him a letter of recommendation talking about how self-starter he was, how talented, how really intelligent and intuitive he was about storytelling.
I just wrote on my application. I didn't go to film school, but I made my own with my friends. And they loved that.
When John Paul won this ACE internship, I knew how big this was. I knew it would not only create pathways for him, but I was hoping it would create pathways for other students. But I couldn't believe just how much that turned out to be true.
Even though John Paul was only out of Pitt for like a year, he had gained so much experience that when he would relay it to us, we would then pass it on to everyone else at UPTV.
Came out here, I did the internship, it was super exciting. So many fun experiences, and then it was over. And then I was just in a small apartment in the Valley and had no money. Like, I hadn't saved up to come out here. So I was like, do I leave? Do I stay? I had like enough money to buy like 1 Budweiser on a Friday night. Fortunately, there was a hoagie place next door, and I'm from Philadelphia, so I got myself a cheesesteak. But other than that, there wasn't any of my friends and, nobody I knew, no family. I decided that the best thing I could do was keep interning. And I just found every job I could freaking find, and I interned wherever I could. As long as it was editing, I did it.
I just worked on a ton of like tiny little indie films that nobody heard of. And so I started out getting them coffee, but by the end of it, I was like first assistant editor. And then I went to the place next door and I was like, hey, just next door, I'll work for free. I literally worked for free on like all these indie films at this facility because it was like a motel that they'd converted. Just by offering my services for basically next to nothing, I met like 25 great editors.
Every person that I met, they all, for some reason, either it was an experience or a person I met interning, it later came back to help me.
And then that led to me getting into like films, eventually working on movies like, I worked for Outcast for 2 years on a film. It all came from the conversations I had in that little motel with a crappy little indie film.
So when I was at Pitt, I was a student, and Idlewild was coming out in theaters, and this was a big movie with Outcast, and JP had worked on it. So I took the bus to the movie theater, and I watched it, and I saw his name in the credits, and then I stayed for a second time, and I watched it again, back to back.
Outcast was a magical time. I was hanging out with like 400 awesome rappers and dancers, and then editing with like master editor Ann Corso, like we would cut Francis Ford Coppola films.
Like, you work for her, like how do you not learn everything, you know, like that's like the best of the best.
I was offered Idlewild, and so I needed a really good assistant that I could really, go on the adventure with. Then I interviewed him, and I knew immediately that he was the best of the people that I had interviewed, and I thought, well, I'll try him. We'll see what happens. He's very serious about his work. He cares about his work. He's ambitious for his work.
The next thing he was working on was the Brad Pitt movie, Jesse James. So, I mean, straight away, I was like, how can you get bigger than this?
Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford was a magical project. And then that led me to eventually edit a Brad Pitt movie. Killing Them Softly was a fantastic project just because I got to see it from the beginning, from the casting process, all the way through to like the premiere at the Cannes Film Festival. Just stuff like that, like you can't recreate. It's just amazing. I did this whole editing thing, spent many years doing amazing stuff, but kind of about 5 or 6 years ago, I think I had to start trying to make my own projects. I was like, well, if I'm gonna sacrifice and earn no money, I might as well do it for myself. So I made a film. It got into Tribeca.
Body Slam, Revenge of the Banana is the story of a group of social outcasts who find their glory in their own wrestling world. John Paul Horstmann and Ryan Harvey are the directors.
Ryan Harvey and I decided to make a film about these crazy wrestlers in Seattle.
So I came up with the idea because the second banana went to Pitt, and I was a friend of mine. He was telling me about his wrestling organization, and I thought it was really weird, and I thought it would make a good movie. We shot these wrestlers for a while, just interviewed a bunch, and then the story started forming.
It just kept getting stranger and weirder and crazier.
We would get together around 7 p.m. and work till midnight. Every Monday through Friday, and then weekends we would work like 12-hour days with no money. We would just do that for about 2 years straight, and then we just kept going forward and shooting this crazy story of these betrayals and lawsuits and everything else that occurred.
We had made our own movie, The Revenge of the Banana, but what we failed to realize is when you make your own movie, you don't get paid for it. I had to kind of eat a lot of my words and go back to editing small projects, little things here and there, just to make some cash. So I took this side job as a way to start getting shorter form projects. And while I was there, they were like, wow, we're really impressed with what you're doing. As a young artist, Billie Eilish, you might have heard of her. She's doing one of her new music videos. Over Christmas though, we can't find anybody that wants to work Christmas. And so I said, yeah. And they were like, yeah, sure, you can work Christmas, come on over. We did the shoot, and I literally was working in my parents' house, like cutting on their kitchen table while we were having Christmas. Billie hated it. The word came back, what the hell did you do, or something like that. What I didn't know at the time is like Billie herself is a filmmaker, an incredibly amazing, sensitive filmmaker. Flew back to LA. We sat down, and then I simply did what she wanted. We went through the video, made it the way she wanted, and that was a great experience. And I just really value that role. Fast forward a few weeks, the video came out and it was like #1 on YouTube, and I couldn't believe it. And I think that sort of led to the seeds of her seeing like, oh, okay, JP can execute something that I really am seeing in my head.
One of the qualities that distinguish Jean Paul is his incredible empathy and caring for others.
When I first moved to LA, I slept on John Paul's couch. And then when we first moved officially, me and Nate Cornett, we lived with John Paul. He was our friend, and he was so generous and kind. We would have been homeless if he didn't let us sleep on his couch.
I went out. I remember I stayed with JP. He showed me around. He took me to really great bars in Hollywood. He was just there for me, you know?
JP also got me my first job, working for a director who I'm still in touch with today.
He encouraged me to apply for the ACE internship, and when I got out there finally, he was able to take me in and show me the ropes with his own productions when he was working on for people like James Franco.
In Hollywood, people are not usually like that. They are very self-centered, lots of narcissistic people, so preoccupied with our own stuff and ambition and this and that it's rare to have a person like him who is so dedicated to helping others, and particularly the young people who come from where he comes from, which is, from the same school, which is marvelous. So he's always looking at ways to connect people. I respect him a lot for that.
I feel like everybody that comes from Pitt to Los Angeles knows John Paul somehow. He's always helping people get jobs and all that sorts of stuff. So it's basically just this line of people that come in and help and build this trust and this sort of family.
He's someone who remembers how hard it was to get to where he was and is always willing to help people out to get to where he is. That's something that he has passed on to me and to others who've worked with him, this idea that we should be helping people achieve their goals as opposed to obstructing them.
Just that attitude goes such a long way. The Pitt spirit is just all about cooperation, not competition.
This was, we all make this stuff together and we are so proud of it no matter what it is.
I think to really understand what John Paul built, you have to really step back and see not just who we were as UPTV, but I think on the bigger scale, who we are as a university.
I think the greatest thing about Pitt is that, well, just in general, people from Pittsburgh have a very can-do spirit.
Pittsburgh as a city always has this underdog mentality, right? It's a blue-collar, hard-working industry.
You bring that 110% and you bring that hard-working mentality to it no matter what.
JP taught us to be self-starters, and that's one of the most important lessons.
John Paul instilled in all of us this goal and this drive to collaborate with people, not to just be in it for myself.
And now you're seeing Pitt, the film department, Pitt, the big picture university, the sports department, understand that there's value here. This is what we're doing. And it's just been great to see that there's still people fighting the same fight we have. Look, 15, 20 years later, we're still doing it. We're still talking about it.
Congratulations, JP.
Congratulations, John Paul Horstmann. That's right. I called you John Paul Horstmann.
Congratulations, buddy.
Congratulations, JP.
Congratulations, JP, on the first ever Pitt Stars Award.
Jean Paul, I think this is a very, very well-deserved award.
I couldn't think of anyone else that they could give this to.
100% you are the ultimate Pitt star, because what a Pitt star isn't a person who seeks any kind of an award at all. A Pitt star is a person who exists for others first.
Thank you, JP, for helping me at the beginning of my career.
It's been such a pleasure to work with you, to know you, to meet you, to have you as part of my life.
It's been great being not only your friend, your confidant, but also your mentee.
You've really bridged the gap between Pittsburgh and Hollywood and made it seem not a far distance between the two.
You're a wonderful person, not bad looking too, which is great.
I'm proud of us for what we achieved together, because I think that's the way you'd want it to be said, is us, right? To have been on your team at Pitt changed my life.
We're very proud of you, John. You've always been very creative.
I feel confident saying that you've reached the heights that you've always wanted to reach. I can't wait to see what you do next.
And can't wait to see you soon. Right, Otis?
Your reach in terms of what you have done for us is unmatched and will never be forgotten.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, John. We're very proud of you.
I cannot think of a person who deserves this accolade more than you do. So, John Paul, congratulations, my friend.